Hey, what's up, guys? Your host, Duran here, and this is the podcast Philosophy for Life. I have Amanda Helen with me. She is a self-improvement coach. She helps women with their femininity, helps people deal with helps workaholics develop a work-life balance, and people just deal with any kind of trauma that's going on within their life. Amanda, can you go ahead and give yourself a short introduction?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. My brand is known as Science and Magic. I studied neuroscience in college, and I've always had a fascination with the human body. And so I use my degree in neuroscience plus my years of experience as a yoga instructor, as a body worker, and I take that knowledge and I help, as you said, high achieving workaholics to understand their nervous system and how to find more satisfaction in their careers and in their lives. And I also, throughout my career path, have realized that soothing the nervous system lends well to enhancing feminine energy in the body. And so I also help women, typically high achieving women who are really in their masculine energy, uncover their feminine energy by sinking into their bodies.
Lovely. For our listeners, how would you describe neuroscience?
Neuroscience, we typically think of the brain when we think of neuroscience, correct? We think, okay, head. I
Yes.
like to approach neuroscience from the perspective of we have the brain, of course, in the skull. And then it also connects through the spinal cord. So as I'm talking, we can kind of think of this because we have the nervous system in our bodies. It's not in a diagram. And then from that spinal cord, there's all these different neural pathways that innervate throughout the body, throughout organs and muscles and bones and skin. And so when I think of neuroscience, I think of the study of the nervous system, which is not just the brain. It is how we perceive the environment, make sense and meaning of that environment, and then respond accordingly in an appropriate way.
Why do you have magic in your title?
Because I think science is completely full of magic. I think there's so much that we know, and I have a deep respect for the scientific method and for studies that have been done and for science. And I also like to open my neural pathways in my life up to what is unknown and new possibilities. And I like to also give myself permission to say, I don't know sometimes. Like, can we just ponder in the unknown? Can we envelop into a childlike awe and wonder of life? And I think that's where the best science comes from as well. So I like to approach my work from a bit of both.
So, what led you to get into this field?
I have always loved the human body. I can remember as a teenager, I was booking massages and taking apple cider vinegar shots because I was interested in health and wellness. And so it made sense in my college career to continue to pursue that. And one thing led to another, and I decided to land my education into neuroscience, and I also minored in dance. I've been a dancer my whole life, and everyone kind of laughed at me. They're like, wait, what? Neuroscience and dance? But I would always say the brain moves the body and the nervous system's in the body. So what I was doing was taking the knowledge I was gaining in the classroom and the long hours in the lab, which is not for my personality, and bringing it into the dance studio and integrating it and experiencing my own nervous system. So what I say I offer is applied neuroscience. It's understanding, yes, the diagrams and the lingo and all of these things, but it's bringing that knowledge into direct experience of the body. And I believe that's sourced from, well, my love of the body, but my college experience, not really knowing what I was doing at the time that it would lead to a career like this. I thought I'd go to grad school in neuroscience,
Mhm.
but now I help people understand that there's systems in their body. And I actually work with scientists who probably know the nervous system a lot better than me, to be honest. But we slow down their systems and integrate their knowledge into their lives. So it's just been a lifelong love for the body, for the nervous system, healing my own nervous system from my own background, and then sharing that embodiment with my clients on my YouTube platform, on my podcast.
So what I hear is you have for the neuroscience you have mental stimulation, and then with the dance it gives you like some a physical stimulation. You said that you've been working on improving your what's it called, your neural was it I'm not a neuroscientist. Is it neurobiology? What was the word?
Yeah, I've been working on improving my own nervous
Their
system.
nervous system. So
Yeah.
what have you done to help you improve your nervous system? First, tell me, what was it like before? What were the issues you were dealing with that
Mhm.
made you want to even improve it in the first place?
Yeah, this would come with, I don't wanna get so much into my childhood and things like that, but there were things in my childhood that had caused trauma in my nervous system, and I think a lot of nervous system activation comes from childhood experience. So, before the age of 7, our brains are in a lower brainwave frequency.
Mhm.
So, this means that they're almost in a state of hypnosis. We're accepting information as if it's complete truth. We don't have a discerning mind. We can't say this is right for me, this is not right for me. We're just making positive and negative associations. And so that means that our the groundwork for our brain is being laid at a very early age. And these things are laid into our subconscious, and then they can start to manifest out into our lives in a subconscious way. And so this can look like, for me, I mean, this is probably why I work with workaholics. I was one. I was a high achiever. I was a workaholic, and my nervous system was go, go, go. And I just remember even scheduling like 10-minute increments into my schedule. And I never really took a breath. And it all came to a peak in my mid-20s when I just had so much anxiety in my body, and I said, "Something's gotta change."
Mhm.
And that's when I made a really big shift in my life, and I started to find tools to modulate my nervous system. I For me, yoga's been huge. I found that, pretty early on, and I know that if I go to a yoga practice 3 times a week, it's kind of like my medicine, it resets my system. I've done deep dive work through what's called somatic experiencing, and that's where you work, it's like therapy, but you work through your body directly through sensations. And I've done a lot of work in healing through actually dancing through my memories, dancing through my experiences, choreographing, creating art. I've worked with therapists, and just understanding my own system and how the sensations that I experience and then how to work with those sensations has been huge. And that's what I help clients do. Sometimes it's working through, subconscious memories, and other times it's like we have a nervous systems that have developed to match a world that looks very different than our modern day society. So it's understanding how stressors meet our nervous system and then calming it down throughout the day so that we're not just in a chronic state of fight or flight.
Okay. As you were speaking, I was thinking about it. I actually had a neuroscientist on my show. Um, a good friend of mine, Diego. We went to college together. He did research at Stanford. Then he worked at Harvard for a period of time, Princeton, and then he did brain. Um, what is it called? Brain rejuvenation. I guess it's a way to, when people are aging, there's like brain cells. You can put new brain cells in, I
Mhm.
guess, animals and try to see if you can reverse the aging process. Um, did you do any kind of, well, yeah, what kind of research? Did you do any kind of, I want to say science projects in college where you had to do work on on a brain, animal brain, a monkey brain, or things like that?
No, I don't remember any of that. And remember, this was a bachelor's of science in neuroscience. So if I would have continued on, I would have gotten more specific with my research. But I very quickly realized that I'm not a lab person. I love reading the results from the studies and then sharing that information and teaching that information. But I never had the personality to be in a lab conducting the experiment. I have such a respect for it. It is long, it is tedious, there's lots that goes into it.
Yeah, it's nasty. I think, what he was telling me, the brain, as you're peeling it apart, there's like layers and layers and layers. So you like gotta pluck away like these little parts of the brain and read it or whatnot. It sounds tedious and time consuming. I definitely wouldn't want to do it. But
Yeah.
let's get back on like the self-improvement aspect of the brain. Like, so how do you help people rewire their brain?
First of all, it's about slowing the nervous system out of a state of survival. And when I work with high achievers, they're used to go, 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 and their nervous systems are always activated. And so the first step is understanding what activation feels like in the body and creating a plan of action to move the body into more of a balanced state. You do want activation. Activation is not a bad thing. That's what gets us through the day. That's what unleashes energy. That's what moves us forward. But if we're chronically there, then that's what leads to burnout, anxiety, adrenal fatigue, things like that. So that's step one. And then we can talk about rewiring the brain. I think a lot of times in the manifestation world, it's rewire the brain. But if you're in a state of fight or flight, then you're in a state of chronic fear activation. And it's a lot easier to do the rewiring when you feel comfortable enough to relax and close the eyes and you feel at peace in your body. So step one, moving out of a state of fight or flight. And then it's accessing the subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind exists in a lower brainwave frequency. And this is where I had talked about in childhood, we're in something called theta. So basically you have beta brainwaves, which is a higher brainwave frequency. You're really alert to your external environment. A little bit lower is alpha, where you slow down, you can close your eyes, your inner world becomes more real than your outer world. And then you have theta brainwaves. This is where you're in a state of hypnosis. It's kind of like as you're falling asleep, you know how you see little pictures or dreams and then you wake up and you're on that verge? That's kind of theta. And then delta is like deep dreamless sleep. So you want to be in this state of like from alpha to theta when you're rewiring. So what I do is I work with my clients to get out of a state of survival. And then once they are, to start dreaming from a heart-centered place. So we connect to the heart and we do a lot of work of like, what does my heart want to create for my life? Because I think when we try to manifest from the brain, we're trying to create from conditioning, whatever society has told us that we should want, or whatever like primary care providers, parents have told us that we should want. And then you write it down and you start doing envisioning work with a lower brainwave frequency, which you can access through meditation, through yoga, you can access it in like the shower or taking road trips too. You know how you're driving sometimes and you're like, I'm here already.
Yeah.
You're probably in theta. You're probably on autopilot, which is really kind of an interesting thing. Same in the shower. That's why we get really good ideas in those creative brainwave states. So
I've been on my own self-improvement journey, and I can relate to the fight or flight, process, because when I was going through that process, I wasn't even aware of it because I was in an environment where it was a lot more hostile. You were taught like, hey, you got to defend yourself, you got to speak up for yourself because you were dealing with it constantly. And it wasn't until I really moved outside of that environment for a number of years was I given the opportunity to relax and to discover a different side of who I am.
yeah.
What I'm curious is that how do you help people get out of that fight or flight or that stressful mindset to help them start to improve their nervous system?
Mm-hmm. Sometimes the stress response is totally warranted. When you're in an environment that asks for it, it's a gift. And I want to name that because sometimes we can demonize the nervous system for its stress response. We can demonize stress, but it's this beautiful biological cascade of hormones that is designed to keep us alive. And it happens in the blink of an eye. Like all this energy is unleashed in the body. And I just want to take a moment to anyone who's listening and just, wow, thank you, body, for giving me this versus this is something bad and needs to be cut out. So if you're not in an environment, the first step would be to remove yourself from the environment if possible, to allow yourself to relax. And hopefully, even if you're in some sort of environment in general that causes a stress response, there's some place where you can relax. But you do need to feel safe. Otherwise, the stress response is giving you what you need. It's giving you that hypervigilance. So you want yourself to feel safe. And that could be, think about, do you feel safe next to your favorite like lake or body of water that you like walking by? Or maybe it's in your room underneath covers with a locked door. Or maybe it's sitting outside in the morning watching the sunrise. So think about first an environment where you feel safe and then find that environment. And then what I do is share with my clients about the nervous system. I have a whole curriculum and course built of like, this is nervous system 101. And we go through, how do you know you're activated? That's the first step. Like what happens in your body? So typically the heart rate would probably increase. Everyone's a little different. Some people have, different signs that are more amplified for them. Thoughts might start to spin as you're strategizing how to get out of the thing, what to do. Muscle tension increases, jaw clenches, shoulders rise. There's a lot of energy in the limbs. And this is all so that you can meet whatever threat is approaching you with strength and with agility. And so the first step would say, okay, interesting, having consciousness. I'm stressed out right now. My nervous system's activated. And this is powerful because then you're not swept away in it. What this does is it brings your frontal lobe on. Your frontal lobe is right underneath your forehead. And this is the part of the brain that's in higher level thinking and reasoning. It's discerning. I'm not going to say or do this now because in the future it's going to affect me in this way. If this is offline, you're operating just from the base of your brain, the survival space, which is only designed to keep you alive in this moment. Does not care about the future. So when you say, oh, interesting, my body is stressed, see how that separates you from that the stress itself. And then you can start to see, like, is this needed at this time? And you can start to bring that frontal lobe online. And then I work with clients, what I call an SOS plan, like in this moment, what can I do in my biology to get me out of this state? This is short-term response. So this could be as simple as finding like a bathroom stall if you're in a public place and hitting a forward fold. So like literally like folding over your legs and holding your elbows. This works for some people. It tips your blood flow up to your brain, nourishes your brain, decompresses your spine, changes your, center of perspective. And then you take 3 deep breaths there, you roll up and it almost refreshes you, right? Or it could be you, again, find like a private place where you don't feel like you're being watched and you do shaking. Animals shake in the wild. You have tons of extra energy in the body. You need to discharge it. You shake 1 limb at a time, 30 seconds each. So it's 2 minutes. Okay, refreshed. If you don't have a private place, that's maybe you place your hand on your belly and you take some deep breaths into your belly. So there's all these different techniques that I work with my clients on, and you want to pick it ahead of time because when you're in that state, you're not going to go through like, what should I use? No, you want to know it and you want to use it. And it takes practice because it's really hard when you're in that space to intercept. So that's the SOS plan. And I also do what I call a preventative plan. Over a period of several weeks, I work with people to find what works for them to tip their nervous system out of fight or flight and into rest and digest. It's called recovery mode. I would say 15 minutes a day would be awesome. And this is before bed. You could do a meditation. You could do a yoga practice. You could take a walk outside. You do want it to be still and you want your body to feel safe. And that is something that's like my yoga 3 times a week. I know that if I do that, I can maintain a really calm, balanced state. I amp it up if I know I have a big stressor coming up, like a move or traveling. I try to do it more because I know that really works for me. Yoga is not for everybody. So you do want it to be a state of rest. Like if you're a runner, go on a run, but then rest afterwards. That'll slow your heart rate down. Your digestive system will come back online. It goes offline when you're stressed out because you don't need to digest food when you're running from something or towards something. And it starts a recovery mode. So these are the 2 ways and it takes some time and some experiment because every single person is wired differently. So different things work for different people.
And that's what I was thinking because what you said, basically for a person to do a lot of this stuff, that you have to be conscious. And I just know that a lot of people are zombies, whether that's by a genetic thing or it's just conditioning. Do you think that this kind of, do you think that everybody is capable of doing this kind of conscious work?
100%. I think they have to want it. And when you experience enough discomfort in your nervous system, you want it. And clients, in whatever degree, reach out to me when they're ready to take it to the next level. That's a reason. Maybe they're not super uncomfortable in their nervous system. Maybe they want to optimize. But some of them are really uncomfortable. They're uncomfortable with their emotions. They're uncomfortable with, they feel like they're approaching burnout. And so if here's the thing, we live in a very digital society, so we can escape the body in a lot of ways for long periods of time, actually. We can escape into the mental plane, but
Mhm.
eventually we're still in bodies, and that will start catching up over time. Like, we can numb out as much as you want, but eventually you're gonna start to feel something, and I think every single person is capable of this. It's just if you want it, and if
Mm.
you want it, if there's a will, there's a way, for sure. You can develop consciousness. We're all conscious beings, and that's how I approach when I work with people. I see them as conscious beings, so I think when you're witnessed in that way, that comes out.
Can you share a story with when you worked with somebody and you helped them get to that stage of that stage of consciousness?
Wow, specific stories. Whenever I get these in interview questions, I'm always like, um, I don't know if I can think of a specific story.
How has your work, as far as like helping people with their nervous system,
Yeah.
um, I've dealt with this. I know everybody to a degree, they have not necessarily issues with the nervous system, but
Mhm.
their body responds different to a specific stimuli.
Yeah.
Um, is there any case that you've had where you were working with somebody and you've helped them improve a situation that was negatively impacting their nervous system?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I worked with a client who was really scared of vulnerability for some trauma that she's suffered from as a childhood, and understanding, like, bringing her nervous system. And here's the thing is, right, I'm not a therapist, so I always tell clients, encourage them to work with a therapist alongside my work. But at the same time, we have these nervous systems and we can understand them. And so I've worked with her in understanding her signs of activation and how she's associating vulnerability with fear. And in doing so, she's able to track, because she suffers from not being able to build connection with people. She wants to deepen her connection, but whenever that
Mhm.
vulnerability comes up, there's a freeze and a flight response because that's not safe. So now what she knows how to do is to say, okay, interesting. Stress is present, activation is present, vulnerability is present. She's conscious in it now. She's not just like blindly running away, sabotaging her relationships. And she's able to slow her nervous system down by breathing in the moment, okay, calming down, and then making the conscious choice to be vulnerable or not. So she has more agency in her relationships. And then obviously building intimate relationships is like an elixir of life. It's like our romantic life, it's our friendships, it's our community. So that's an example of like how bringing consciousness into a situation can help to modulate a nervous system that we've evolved to have that's kind of like animal-like. It just wants to keep us alive.
When I hear oh my goodness, when I hear vulnerability,
Yeah.
I think of um, intimacy,
Mhm.
because the more vulnerable you are,
Yeah.
the higher the potential is for you to actually have an intimate relationship. Obviously, even if you are vulnerable, you're more likely to be hurt, but you also
Mhm.
can have a great relationship. How how is a woman's ability to be vulnerable? How does that impact her femininity? I know that you help women with their femininity
Mhm.
as well. So how do you help women grow and embrace their femininity and not and be more vulnerable?
Being vulnerable is incredibly feminine. And when you're in a state of fight or flight, when the nervous system's activated, you're hard. So think of that. Your muscles are tense, your jaw's gritted down, you got a shield over your heart, you're hypervigilant. It's blocking potential threats. By nature, vulnerability is softening and allowing, and honestly, there's a possibility you might get hurt. That's the nature of vulnerability. But there's also the potential that you might have this warm, cozy, intimate connection. And so it's about, one, understanding softness and understanding how to let the nervous system feel safe, how to soften the body, to slow down, and then what it's like to surrender and be okay not being okay. Like, if you are hurt, How can you be so centered in yourself and sourced in yourself that you can let yourself be hurt, but you're not going to die, if that makes sense? That's the scary part of vulnerability. It feels like I'm not going to be able to handle this.
Yeah. Makes you feel like you're not safe.
Yes, exactly, which is nervous system activation.
I want to know, women have a lot more opportunities today than they've had in past generations. You know, they have more freedoms than their grandparents had. But at the same time, we're less connected than we were before. And
Yeah.
it just seems like people, I don't know this for a fact, but it seems like people are not as happy as people used to be. There was more society, more culture. How do you think society hurts women when it comes to helping women embrace being feminine?
How does society hurt women in the helping of them embrace being feminine?
How does it impact it? There's a lot of guys on the internet talking about how
Yeah.
women are, you know, how they're crappy, how women they're not good mothers, they're not good wives. Women are
Mhm.
basically your competition. You know, I hear things like that echoed on the internet a lot. You know, and there's a lot of dating coaches for both men and women that
Mhm.
help women deal with their femininity and help men deal with being more masculine. So there's obviously something socially that's going on in our culture
Mhm.
that is impacting the way men and women relate to each other, and how um, men embrace their masculinity and how women embrace their femininity. What are some things that you think are impacting that?
I don't think women are embracing their femininity. So
Yeah,
that's why the question was, you know,
that's what I mean.
it's
Why do
opposite
you
in my
why do
mind.
you think women aren't, like, women aren't embracing it? So
No.
why do you think that is?
I know for me, I was raised by a strong, independent, single mother, and she was very proud and wouldn't receive a lot of help. And I've noticed that there's something within her generation, and I don't know what that is, where there's this belief in like more of a 50-50 split of masculine and feminine energy.
Mm,
I think it's also this revering of independence in our society, that hard work is revered, that perseverance is revered, moving through challenge and obstacles and pushing and striving and success. And these things are great. Don't get me wrong, they are amazing, but they're overemphasized and not embraced when countered with ideas of interdependence and community, which is very feminine, and being soft and flowing. And what if you have a day where you're not getting anything done? In the Western world, that's considered like unproductive and kind of bad. And these energies aren't valued in a lot of families. So women are learning, and myself included. This was many years for me, that striving and achieving and reaching goals will make me valuable, when really my beingness as a woman offers a lot of value. My presence, my refreshing, rejuvenating radiance. Not to say that I don't do, I love doing. I mean, I'm here offering my knowledge in neuroscience,
mhm.
but I also have learned to slow down, to be present, to lean back and to listen, and the art of receiving, that it's not a bad thing, it's not something to be pitied, that it's an art, it's a half of love. Love is giving and receiving. When you love, you receive, just like you give when you love. These things we've just been conditioned as a society. So I think that all of us have just revered masculine principles, and women have tried to catch up with them, but something's not working because masculine and masculine butts heads. Feminine and feminine kind of flows away from each other. We don't
Yeah.
really have a lot of that, but been a lot of butting heads, and there's exhausted women. I'm a new mother. I just became a mother 10 months ago. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, if I was, working full time and trying to take care of my baby and all this stuff, I have a really supportive husband who's allowing me to have this time. I can feel that my hormones were made to be with my baby at this time. And I don't want to say that's for every woman, but for me, that's what it feels like. And had I been in the go, go, go mode, at the time, I think I would have really suffered in my body. But
Mm.
but with my knowledge, I've allowed this to be a really feminine time of my life where I'm not doing a lot. So it's
Congratulations on becoming a new
thank
mother.
you. Thank you.
Did you have a boy or a girl?
Little boy.
Okay, lovely. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah,
It's
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 the
fun. They
best.
grow real fast at this age, especially he's gonna be growing for like the next 5 years. Every 2 weeks is gonna be a different person.
Yeah, it's incredible.
But what I want to know about your femininity journey.
Mhm.
You said that you kind of had to battle this as well at some point in time. Um, how did you how did you become aware that femininity was something that you needed to embrace, and what did you do? What steps did you take to actually help yourself start embracing your femininity?
Mhm. Well, I knew my nervous system needed help in my mid-20s. So that was my start to feminine energy without understanding what I was doing. I knew I needed to slow down. I knew I needed to take care of myself. I knew I needed to soften. I knew I needed to learn how to surrender, but I didn't know it was feminine energy. And I think in the past several years, I've started to learn more about feminine energy and actually be approached by my YouTube subscribers for guidance in their feminine energy. I've been invited on podcasts to talk about it. So it was something that I just stumbled upon because what I'm doing of connecting people to their bodies is innately feminine. Masculine energy lives in the head, it lives in the mental plane. And my whole framework is connecting people to their hearts and their bodies so that they can inhabit their lives in an embodied way. So I started to use the language feminine energy when I started to be seen in that and sought after for that guidance. And now I look to nature as one of my main teachers because nature is feminine energy, like the source of it. So understanding feminine energy in my own body as a woman, as a feminine energy being, and looking at nature, it really guides what I share on my channel and how I work with my clients.
Something I was watching a few of your podcasts. You mentioned living deliciously. I believe
Yeah.
that's what you said that a few times, I believe. What do you mean by that?
This is another thing, living deliciously, living through your senses. Feminine energy is absorbed in the world through the senses, through taking pleasure and taking the world in through sight and smell and hearing and touch. And so living deliciously means being in your life, not just always projecting to the next best thing. And then all of a sudden you're at the end of your life and you're like, whoa, that went fast. I mean, how many times do you hear people say that? Or maybe, we both say it. It's like, that went fast.
Mm.
Why would we want that? So living deliciously is being present for this beautiful life that you're living. And not that there's not valleys, there's peaks and there's valleys, just like there's winters and there's summers. But why not be there for them with the full body? Because I believe this is more of a spiritual, the magic belief, but I believe we're spirits in these bodies and we're here to have human experience. So living deliciously is living in that way, not just in the mental plane.
I get what you mean. When I went through my journey, my self improvement journey and improving my nervous system and just in building up and improving my spirit,
Mm.
not only was I changing internally, the world outside of me started to change. The
Yes.
people that I hung out with, the quality of the relationships that I had, both friendly and romantically, they improved and they changed. What I'm curious is that for you, when you learned to embrace your femininity and you were healing, how did your romantic relationships change? Like, what kind of guys were you attracting before? How did the relationships go at that point? And then how are they now? Obviously, you're married, but how did the
Mhm.
dynamics change?
Yeah, yeah. I would say that my relationships were very much more 50-50 before. Like I remember in one of them, I would always be the initiator. I would, book the trip and have the ideas and want to go to this place. And even financially, it would be split more 50-50. And if we wanted to move, like everything, I was initiating, I was leading everything. And that was really tiring for me. And now having switched that, I feel like I can rest and lean back more. And my husband's very much a leader, and that feels better and more native and more at home for me to be led in romance. In my business, I'm obviously the leader because I am leading my business. So in my work life, I'm leading, but in my romantic life, it's like a breath of fresh air because I can just lean back and relax.
How did you find a balance? Because that's something that I think everybody, men and women, struggle with. Learning how to balance the professional, the hustle, with the balance that with relationships, and then also finding time for yourself. Like
Mhm.
how do you help people find balance who are trying to move away from like this go workaholic
Mhm.
environment, and then basically to come to create an environment where they can actually be themselves and have time for not only business but for relationships, and not allow that stress to basically take over them.
Well, it comes with what we talked about in the beginning. It's like understanding the nervous system and being proactive about moving the system out of a state of fight or flight and into a more balanced state. Because from that state, you're a different person. I mean, you just said that. Like everything unfolds from within you. And so once you can shift your own body and your own biology, then you can start to see your world in a different way. You start to see pockets of time you maybe didn't see. And especially if you're someone who identifies as having a feminine core, and we all have aspects of masculine or feminine, when you access that, it feels like home. It's just natural and normal. It's just a matter of finding it. And then there's no trying. It just feels good, but it's about slowing the nervous system down and getting out of that activated state that so many of us are in. I really think this is why I love the line of work I'm in, that it is the key to having a satisfying life in all the ways, is getting out of a chronic state of fight or flight, of working through trauma that you hold in your body and seeing the world through the lens of balance, through heart, and through your spirit.
What I'm wondering is for somebody that is, I want to say for me, for example, I knew that when I learned to have balance and I learned to eliminate stress from my life, there was a lot of it was an internal journey that took a number of
Yeah.
years. Um, and I wasn't always aware of that stress that I was actually experiencing within me
Mhm.
until I got towards the end of my journey. What are some signs that what are some telltale signs that somebody can um, if they're doing this investigation, this self-investigation, what are some signs that they are experiencing chronic stress, like within their body and their spirit?
Mhm. A lack of joy in life is probably one of the biggest ones. If there's just like something's missing and I'm not feeling anything, like I'm just so I can't slow down. I'm just on this like rat race. Exhaustion, like chronic exhaustion. Now this could look like a lot of different things because you might never feel like you get enough sleep, or you might be someone who can never sleep, if that makes sense. You always the person who like only sleeps 3 hours, that can be a sign of like deep exhaustion.
Mm.
Obviously, if you look in the mirror and you like don't resonate with yourself, that can feel something like I'm not inhabited in my body. Like I don't feel that my soul lives on my face and my soul lives here. That means you're not really spending enough time with your body, that you're in a state of fight or flight. Chronic muscle tension. So having a lot of like pain in the neck. I feel like a lot of people might start to experience chronic stress through muscle pain. Like, oh, even a massage won't do it, that sort of a thing. Like you're just
Mhm.
braced all the time. These are all signs that you're chronically activated. And then I've had a couple of people on my podcast actually who have ended up in the hospital because they've just like gotten so exhausted. Like it just hit a breaking point and they just ended up in the hospital because they were so fatigued or they had some sort of reaction in the body because they were so stressed out. So that can be a life-changing moment too. But
A lot of time people are experiencing the stress that comes from work. They're in a work environment where it's not healthy, and they're dependent on that job to live. Uh,
mhm.
for you, when did you escape the 9 to 5? Because I'm pretty sure with school, work, that was
Mhm,
adding stress to your life. But at
mhm.
some point, you exited that. Like, how long ago did you escape that 9 to 5 hustle and bustle lifestyle?
When I was 22,
Wow.
I lasted 2 years in a 9 to 5,
Oh, wow.
and I was just yeah, I just didn't like it, and honestly, I went into serving right after, but then what I ended up doing was starting a nonprofit. I've been an entrepreneur my whole life, it's just in my blood, like, I just love it. So, I worked for 4 years running a nonprofit in my city with artists. So, I have 150 artists on the roster, and I throw performing art shows all around the cities, like, multidisciplinary music and dance and fashion and spoken word, and each show would have a certain cause or slant to it, encouraging cross collaboration between artists. But how I was approaching that was very hustle. Like I would just like fly from one thing to the other. I'd forget to breathe as I'm doing my emails. And after that is when I ended up having that kind of panic, anxiety, and I dissolved the organization and I just stepped back from working in general and started healing myself.
How,
So that was the big shift.
when did you get into this holistic healing?
After that, I went to what's called Rolfing school. I came back to my love of the body. So the nonprofit was my love of art 'cause I'm a dancer. So
Yeah.
that's where that came in. But then I went back to my love of the body, which is also dance. But I went to a school called the Dr. Ida Rolf Institute, and it's about working with the connective tissue. So essentially, I'm studying the nervous system with my hands. And it's hands-on work with your fascia to create a optimal posture in the body, to explore how you move, if it's an in integrity. And I did that for a year and a half. And between my mentorship and schooling, graduated afterwards, and then kind of started this journey of science and magic because I started to realize how important cognitive thinking was. It wasn't just about me working hands on with tissue that was causing the change. It was the person's belief in their ability to change, their belief in in me as a practitioner, their willingness to take the information and bring it into their daily lives. And so that got me into coaching.
I like that you say you emphasize nervous system
Mhm.
because we always hear like on the internet or just day to day we hear that if you want to have a healthy lifestyle you need to exercise, you need to diet, you need to do
Yeah.
etc, and all those things sound great. Those are things that I do,
Yeah.
but I think that when you focus on paying attention to what your nervous system
Yes.
responds to, I think that's more of that's a more accurate I would say that's a more accurate fact because strength and conditioning, weightlifting, running, that's not for everybody.
Mhm.
Everybody has something different that they
Yeah.
respond to that helps their body. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I think you nailed it, like when it comes to learning how to relax, heal, figure out who you are, find out something that helps bring you to peace.
Yes.
Um, I want to know, we spoke about magic at the beginning of the
Mhm.
podcast, but I want to know what role does magic play in your business?
I give all my clients the opportunity to bring in their spiritual practice. If they have a name, whether it's the universe, divine, God, if they're part of religion, because I found that in my own life, it's the most actually potent practice that I have to improve, to evolve, to become more aligned with who I am is my spiritual practice. So I give them the opportunity to write surrender prayers when we meditate in the beginning. If they want, we can call in divine forces. And again, it's an option because not everybody wants that. Some just want nervous system work. But what I think that looks like in the brain is you can think of our brains as being wired according to everything we've experienced in life so far. So it's not set, which is really nice, right? It's that neuroplasticity. It can wire and rewire as we learn new things and have new experiences and as we open ourselves up to new ideas. But when we surrender or when we say, God, universe, the loving energy that runs through nature and creates rainforests, can you help me? Because I've created the life that I have right now that I want to shift from the level of mind that I'm already wired. There's something magic that happens in that. Like, let's not use any of my neural pathways. Let's just open up to harmony.
Mhm.
And then if harmony flows through, then that's ideal. So there's something in that. That's the magic part. And I mean, I'm a very spiritual person myself. So I do prayer journals every morning. And if my clients want to, I encourage them to connect in some way spiritually throughout the self-development process. I know the times in my life where I've had the most nervous system activation and felt the most uh, like helpless. I will just like, those are the moments where, you drop to your knees and you just pray and like, I just ask the angels for help and they come. So it's just a big resource for me. And yeah, I also pull in elements of like seasonal wisdom, which is more of that traditional magic that you would think of, um, more of like pagan, of like, okay, well, I follow the seasons and the wisdom of nature. And that's a magic that I can offer clients as well. I have a membership portal where I have practitioners from all different practices, Chinese medicine, Ayurveda, yoga instructors, and they offer astrology and they offer wisdom according to the seasons. So that's also something that I can pull in. So I have all these different pieces. My expertise is definitely nervous system, but I can add elements, and people seem to like that. I mean, I've actually worked with a scientist and an engineer, and all they wanted to talk about in our sessions was magic.
Mm.
I mean, it was that's like they wanted to get out of that logical thinking brain and into mystery and into awe, and that was really soothing, and that awakened something in them.
The architect of the engineer is the wizard. It's the creator.
Mm,
You know, um,
yeah.
those personality things that they have, the Myers Briggs. Because I'm an engineer, so
Uh-huh.
they're engineers, they're creators. A lot of engineers are also musicians, so it has
Mm,
to do with something with the creative brain. But out of
yeah.
curiosity, I'm into spirituality as well. What
Mhm.
kind of books do you read? Like, what are some of your favorite books?
Well, let me say that I really miss these mornings 'cause now that I'm a new mom, I don't
Okay.
I don't really crack open, books, but I used to, and I hope to get back to this. My little one's still pretty little. Mystic poetry. I love reading mystic poetry. So like Hafiz, Rumi, Khalil Gibran. I love reading anything that has to do with like my Irish ancestry and the land in Ireland and understanding kind of the old earth-centered traditions there. I got really into that for a while. I
Mm.
listen to audiobooks now, so that's been my new transition is I listen to audiobooks. But I used to love like cracking open a book in the morning and like poetry specifically and then reading poetry. So I might have to get back to that with listening. When I was younger, I read the Bible a lot every morning. It's just something to center into love, to center into spirit, and to click that in the morning has been really big for me. What about you?
I do something. Well, my favorite spirituality book is "Seat of the Soul" by Gary
Mm,
Zukov.
yeah.
That book is it's had a profound impact on my heart just in general. I wasn't expecting
Love
that
that.
book to change me in the ways that it did. It was actually just
Yeah.
recommended to me by an engineer. It's like, oh, I'll
Yeah.
check it out. It sounds good. But that was a pretty good book. Um, there's been a few different books that I've read, and I've dug deeper into that space. Like there's one called I can't think. I know the Four Agreements. That's a pretty popular one.
Mhm.
There's another one like the Tethered Soul.
Oh, yeah.
That's a really good book. Um, I like Napoleon Hill's Outwitting the Devil because it
Mhm.
it teaches you how unconsciously negative thoughts, negative spirits, negative energy, how it infiltrates your mind, and
Yeah.
he does it in very subtle ways. So
Yeah.
you have to be conscious, and you're going to make mistakes, but the thing is not making mistakes, it's just being aware of the mistakes that you're
Yes.
making, so that you can.
Consciousness.
Yes. So like we're always going to go back and forth between good and negative energy. Our minds are going to take us someplace. But if you're aware when your mind starts to get caught on something negative and it keeps repeating and cycling, you can at least
Yeah.
recognize it, laugh at it, and then just refocus on something else.
Yeah, I love that.
You spoke about surrender and prayer. I haven't heard that at all. What is that all about?
Surrender and prayer.
Yeah.
Well, prayer is that connection into that source. It's like whatever it is, however we use words around it. And the root of it is there's some sort of energy that's flowing through a rainforest or a desert or any sort of landscape, of wildflower meadows in the mountains, that's creating this beautiful ecosystem of harmony, and it's, stunning. And it's that energy. And this is something too, I did a few modules of craniosacral school, biodynamic craniosacral school. And this is working with the craniosacral rhythms in the body. And I didn't finish the program. I loved it, but I got pregnant and I just wanted to focus on being pregnant and connecting into an energy field around and linking that energy field into the body. So what was really cool about being pregnant is I wasn't growing my baby. My baby was growing through me. It was fascinating. Like, I'm not like heartbeat, grow. There's nothing logical about it. It just happens. So it's this idea we're all connected to a field. And that field, when we can let our thoughts go, let our thinking interferes with it, we can find our way to harmony in all aspects, in health and life. And it's the source. And whatever we call that, prayer for me is linking into that source. That can be a feeling, it's often through the heart. It can be through words. I feel like I've prayed so much while dancing. Dancing is a huge form of prayer for me, but it's linking into this field that is just lush with harmony and vitality. And surrender is saying, one of my clients said it the best. It's being okay, not being okay. It's like when the thing you don't want to happen happens, like not running from it and just be like, I'll be okay. I'll be okay if this happens, and I'll be okay if this happens. And in this moment, I'm okay. Like I'm choosing, it's sourcing your trust in that field and saying that anything that's happening right now is like for me in some way. It's releasing and into something bigger and greater. And surrender can be super scary for people. And it's hard you have to feel safe. You really have to feel safe, because if you feel like your life's in danger, you're not going to be in a state of surrender. It just doesn't make sense. Unless you have a death wish, according to the nervous system, right? If you're in a state of physical fight or flight, to surrender, it wouldn't make, it just wouldn't be helpful. So surrendering is feeling safe, and it's allowing and trusting in a bigger force. And for me, it's that energy field. I use all the words God, divine, universe.
You have to be brave to put yourself in a space where you can be vulnerable or surrender. You
Mhm.
know, a lot of times I do know my previous self, I used to see surrender and being vulnerable as a sign of weakness.
Yeah.
Like, but it's really a sign of power. You know,
Yeah.
most people aren't powerful enough to surrender and sacrifice something old for something better.
Mhm.
People see surrender as losing something,
Yeah.
not as giving up something for something better.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
just something I had to learn. Go ahead.
Yeah. I was going to say it all depends on the context too, of like,
Mhm.
because I think there are totally situations that warrant not surrendering and being like, I'm going to push through this and I'm going to come out of it in a way that's strong and fortified.
What are
But
you thinking
then,
of? What are you thinking of when you say that? Like you said, there are times where you shouldn't surrender. What are you thinking? What are those times? What do those times look like?
like let's say if you're in a situation that's not good, like to sit and surrender to that doesn't make sense. And so what happens, if we think that like that can be a really advantageous thing to do to s- not surrender,
Mhm.
to get through something that's really hard, to get you into a better place. But then when you are safe and you're in a better place, letting that go is a skill set. And then it can be a disadvantage to not surrender. So I think, because I'm thinking of like when I think of surrender, if you look at the definition, I'm big on definitions, it's like waving the white flag, like in a
Yeah.
battle.
And that's how
Well,
people see it, as weakness.
yeah, but if you're fighting a battle, if there's like a battle of some sort, if there's something to overcome, then I think push through, move the battle. It's
Exactly.
like, that's beautiful. That's that activation that we need in life. But then
And you
also
just
that's not the only thing, like knowing when to sit back and be like, oh, actually there's something bigger or greater here. So it's like being able to ebb and flow through these things.
And you just nailed it. You said when you wanna overcome something, because a lot of
Yes.
times people can't really tell the difference, especially when you're in the negative state or
Yeah.
you're in, a stressful situation, your nervous
Yeah.
system's messed up. A lot of people can't tell the difference between a safe space or a
Yeah.
negative space. So they bring
Yeah.
that energy into all different types of environments. But I
Yeah.
think you nailed it when you said overcome. When you're trying to overcome something, you're trying to push through something to
Yeah.
achieve something,
Yes.
to to get something, then that's a good situation where you don't want to necessarily surrender.
Yeah.
I have two more questions for you. I want to make
Yes.
sure I ask you this. So you said you connect with your Irish roots.
Yeah.
What does Are the Irish, do they believe in paganism? Because I've heard of that. I'm not too familiar with paganism.
There's a history there for sure of earth-centered spirituality like there has been all over the world.
Mm,
But as far as I know, there was an intersection of Christianity and the paganism, and it's a story that happens like throughout the world, but they have intermixed in a certain way. But the earth centered, there is the name is Dana for the goddess of Ireland. It's the land of, and there's this beautiful mythology around Ireland that I honestly, like I said, this was pre-baby that I was really getting into it. So I don't think that I could speak in an articulate way about it. But I
mhm,
do know there is something about connecting into that land. And I visited Ireland too. And I just like, oh, I loved it, into like the water and the mythology and like the fairies or the fae people. And there's legends and all of this stuff. It felt really rich to me. And also in the moments where it was crossed with Christianity, I have a Christian upbringing. So um, seeing that shift, I don't know, it was interesting to learn about that. And I would like to continue learning about it at a different
mm.
season of my life.
You said the goddess Fae. That reminds me of Vikings religion,
Mhm.
Odin and his wife Fae.
Mhm.
Maybe,
Oh,
maybe there's some kind of connection
uh-huh.
between the two. But
Yeah, I'm sure.
the last question I have for you is that I ask all my guests this question: what is your philosophy for life?
My philosophy of life: to live deliciously, to live through your senses. My philosophy in life is I think where spirit meets body,
Hmm.
and as much as possible to be in these bodies that we've been given. I mean, for better or for worse, right? Like sometimes we have a lot of pain in the body, or sometimes the nervous system is really uncomfortable to be in. But I think at the end of the day, there's profound gifts that are being offered through the senses. And living deliciously is not just rainbows and butterflies all the time, but it's living deeply. It's living deeply and through the body, and being that stardust meets earth matter and that human experience.
Amanda, thank you for coming on the show. It
Thank
was
you for
very
having me.
interesting. I really enjoyed the spirituality talk. I wish I would have dove a little bit more. I wish we had started this conversation a little bit early on in the podcast, because that's
Mhm.
something that's a space that I investigate daily.
It's
So
very cool.
yeah. But anyways, thank you for coming on. Maybe we can do this again some
Mhm.
other time.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me.
Have a good one. Take care.
Mm.